Okay, 6 o'clock. Call meeting to order. So a roll call. Everyone here in person, except for Kate Lampier, and I believe Kate's online. Kate, is that you?
Yes.
So looking for approval for the agenda. I actually have a couple of changes I need to propose. So the first one is going to be adding an additional executive session under the first one. And I can go over that in a second. The second change is removing GMUSD business, which is a new staff recommendation for hires. Happen. And then under school climate, and there's a 1 and 2, 3, which was board concern. Board concern. So, with those additions, is there any discussion or any other additional additions or deletions?
You submitted the executive session under the first one. That was a second executive session under the first executive session.
I would move to add the policy governance redraft that I submitted as a discussion item immediately before the second read of the existing document.
The government discussion. Is there any others? All right. Okay, so if there's no other discussions, I'm sorry, I'm just tired today. Motion to approve multiple changes. Policy discussion, board concern, removal of new hire, and second executive session.
Yes.
Gosh, who was that?
Scott Casey. Who's me?
All right. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so now I'm looking for an approval of the minutes from the October 30th meeting. Second. Changes, previous discussions. All in favor of approval of the minutes?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that's gonna bring us to our first public comments. Any hands up online?
Good evening. My name is Penny Benelli. I'm here to support the redraft of the policy that Donovan Nichols has done. I have read it in its entirety. I'm very impressed. It's a huge amount of work. It's very thoughtful. It's very thorough. It addresses lots and lots of things about students, and I'm delighted to see that it addresses bullying of students in the school and in all of the schools, but it's been a problem here. And I'm really pleased with that. It's very clear. It addresses honest accountability, communication, transparency, and it's in detail. It's consistent. It covers all this important work that you do. It covers what you do and how you do it, and it's quite an accomplishment. And I hope that you will give it serious consideration. Thank you.
Check for you, bro. Cool.
Oh,
So,
Front door.
She doesn't know what's going to.
that brings us to policy discussion. Done.
Yeah, so the document that I sent to everybody, it sort of builds off the original policy governance framework. You know, it aims to align it more with Vermont statute. You know, it sets a really clear boundary between superintendent and board. And it really sets tone for monitoring expectations that I think is lacking in the current version of it.
Discussion.
But I thought it was great work, thank you.
It was a lot, and it's a lot to read, and without comparing them side by side visually, for me, it's hard to, I can't remember them all.
Yeah.
Differences between them, there are slight differences. And was the intent that we would adopt all of those as you revise them tonight if we were to take action on policy governance?
It was essentially just a replacement for the standard document. It uses some similar language and then it adds a few sections.
Right.
It adds quite a bit to each section.
So I guess that's what I want to
Yeah,
understand,
so that it would be in place of,
of the existing, like, basic policy governance that
yeah,
we took
Yeah.
out of the. Okay, that's why I was supposed clear if that was the intent to do that all at once.
Yeah, I mean, I also really appreciate all the effort and the clarity that it brings in. And so my thinking is that either we would like, actually take the time to read all of that tonight or to put off action on a second read until we've had time to do that on our own and come back with either a motion on the new version or a motion on the old version.
I just was curious, Donna, because you were here at the meeting when the group sat around and created the policies together. What prompted you?
some of the interpretations that we had received, to some of the conversations that had happened since then. Like, at that time, I was still really figuring out, you know, what it meant to be on the board and how to participate, and a lot of things were just kind of going through my head at that time. So, you know, a little more experience, I just had some time to think about it.
And this was a individual act? No help?
Yeah, I used some programs, you know, I posted it. The reason people are aware of it is that at the same time that I sent it to the board, I posted it on a Facebook page as well, open to the public. It's the Google Drive.
And the public interacted with it?
No editing, no.
So you did them individually?
Yes.
Questions, discussion?
My only thought on it is we went through this all the first time and adopted as is. My understanding was that we would work through these policies a couple at a time, rather than rewrite the whole thing all at once. And then it seems counter to one, how the policy governance training went and how we've been approaching it since then. So it makes, like, I get it. Part of the process is reviewing these and tweaking them. Doing them all at once, so like you said, it's a lot to digest. Sitting down tonight and reading through, I forget how many it was. How many was it? 20 something?
There's, shoot, I think it's like 43 total pages on it.
No, I mean, different policies. I didn't page count, I couldn't remember, but
Yeah.
like I said, especially without physical copies side by side. Doing them a couple at a time seemed to make sense to me and work. this seems overly cumbersome and inefficient.
Kate?
Thanks. Sorry, I was having connection issues. Donovan, I really appreciate all of the work that you've put into this. And I will say for me personally, I feel like when we sat and wrote the policies together, that was a really meaningful exercise. And I had no idea what policy governance was going to be like. And now having more experience and not a lot of experience, I do feel like I have a lot more to say about how these policies are developed and what needs to be in them than when we were just getting kind of the our consultants format and then we kind of just wordsmith. So my preference would be to hold off on the second read Donovan's, and then come back together and do a thoughtful revision exercise to have more meaningful policies. I find I read through ours and it's not giving me what I feel like we need as a board.
So I would just add in terms of what we're doing next. So my understanding is that we did pass that we would move towards policy governance. Like that's something that we voted on and I think that's important and that this is consistent with that. But in doing a second read of the actual policies, to me, it makes a lot of sense to have read those and thought them very carefully and therefore to put it off until we've all done that, rather than accepting something tonight and then revising if we are not on board with what the actual text of the policies.
How many have we approved already?
Interpretations of.
Yeah, we had approved the policies in the first read. And then we have done the board behavior ELs. We're in the second read of EL 2.1 and 2.2, and then first reads for the other four. So we accepted one group of policies and then had moved into starting to go through the ELs.
Just seems like a lot of that.
It does, and it seems like a bit of a blind side. Me, if like you had concerns, why did you not say anything at any prior meeting?
I mean, this is a second read. This would be a time to bring out revisions and
Sure.
concerns.
But when you go in and rewrite the entire thing without saying anything.
Yeah, typically that would present something if I were to work with too many members of the board, that would be a violation of statute.
You know, at a board meeting. Participated.
And
I do feel that it is a bit regressive if we're moving forward on this. We're heading into budget season. And like I said, my understanding was we would adopt this and then go through the policies individually to fine tune them to where we want. Now it seems kind of backwards that we're gonna potentially do all that work before a second read, before even adopting it formally. So that doesn't make sense to me. That's where I'm getting stuck. We could do a lot of time and energy and then at the end of it, not adopt it. I don't think any of the policies in here, there's anything really objectionable in there. Could they be improved upon? Sure. Arlene's interpretations of them really critical too, to tweaks that might need to happen. Absolutely. It doesn't make sense to me to reverse the process now. It seems like kind of a lot of wasted time getting here and then potentially more wasted time down the road when if we adopt it and then continue moving through them individually, I think we can still achieve those same outcomes and add the necessary revisions that people will be happy with. and get where we need to be without going backwards.
Can you share what is the reversal or going backwards? I mean, what we did with the first read was literally a two-page. It's in the folder. So this is the first read. And there wasn't a big discussion at that time. And so coming to the second read now, bringing up new ideas and potential revisions seems like actually progress and part of the process. I'm just not seeing what the reversal or the going back.
Well, one, I thought we had done the second, read and final, this was the discussion last meeting, right? Everybody thought we'd already done this and then,
We
okay,
have.
I guess we hadn't. So let's get it on the agenda and get it done so we can keep moving forward with the policy interpretations and reviews and ratifications like we have been doing, working towards. And now this is kind of just put the brakes on all that. And again, it seems like we're gonna reverse engineer this by doing all the policies and then deciding whether or not we want policy governance. Which to me, if we're not gonna adopt it, then I don't see the value in going through all the policies and putting all that time and energy into it.
So we did have the vote that was, let's move forward with policy governance and developing this policy. And so I just feel like this is the actual process. So to vote to adopt policies that we are saying are not really where we want them to be, to me, that seems like the kind of backpedaling or reversal rather than having the policies that we actually want before we adopt them.
Yeah, I feel like during the first read is when we generally are going through and making the changes. And the second read is to make sure that they are fitting what we've kind of decided we want changed. And then we adopt. So if we've already done our first read, I think that's what Jerry and Casey are kind of saying, right? Is like going backwards. We've done our first read, which is when we would make the changes. And now we're at the second read, but now we want to make changes and now we're going to go backwards to the beginning of what we would typically do during the first read. I mean, that's my understanding.
Discussion. Okay, so is there a motion to, did you present a motion in regards to yours? Is
No,
Just a discussion about it.
there any further discussion on it then? The board will proceed then to the second read of policy governance.
I would like to.
yes.
Yes.
All right, so that brings us to 5. The second read of policy governance, which was in your folders as well. Questions, discussion?
So I guess I would like some discussion of how policy governance would work. Moving forward with some of the issues that are on the table. So for example, before policy governance, we turned restructuring over to the experts. And that recommendation was to, I misspoke before, to have Baltimore families switch to Cavendish incoming, to have the preschool at Cavendish and to have temporary buildings at Chester and Dover. So if we are adopting the policy governance as it is in the second read, would it now be the case that it would not be the board could be asked for input on that, but the board would not actually be voting? And so if it had been the expert's recommendation, that would have meant Baltimore families move and the temporary rather than permanent building at Chester was how we're moving forward. So that
If I recall, there was actually multiple proposals that were provided to the board that night, and the board made a choice between them. There was plenty of open forum discussions with the community about what they thought was best after the principal and the administrative team had come together to try to figure out what was best. And I think the best proof of it all is the fact that things are up and running well the way that they should be.
I'm completely not trying to question these decisions. I'm trying to get an understanding of what would happen under policy governance. And the only proposal that is in the minutes since the restructuring committee asked administration to make those recommendations was that 3-part recommendation.
So the question about under policy governance, what would happen and how it plays out depends upon how you as a board decide to structure the policies that control that. And you can change them at any time. You have to go through the 2 reads. But again, that's one of the nice parts about it is if the policies aren't driving things quite in the direction that you hope, you change the policy.
There may be a misunderstanding, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you have concerns that if policy governance is adopted, then sole authority to make decisions like adding a preschool, building an addition, significant action like that would rest solely with the superintendent.
Yes, I'm wondering, well, and I'm also wondering where the lines are. So in that case, before policy governance, it was very clear and the superintendent was great about being clear that there was a proposal from them, but it was the board's decision. And we voted on not sending Baltimore families to Cavendish, and then we voted on the permanent structure and counting on the FEMA money for the addition. So I'm just confused really about whether that would still be the process of, is it presenting a proposal and the board has the final say? And then in the recent discussions of the middle school model, my understanding, and it could be completely wrong, was that there was a statement that the Chester Andover 6th graders moving to Green Mountain, that would be completely administrative decision under policy governance. But whether Cavendish 6th graders were moved to Green Mountain or not would be a board decision or the will of the board. And then also just like the pieces of the lawn mowing and the paper of record, like I'm just not understanding. It seems like under policy governance that in fact would be all in the administrator's hands, and that it's the board's job to say whether we think those decisions are in line with the goals and producing the goals that we've set or not. But then we've gone back and forth on, well, does the board make that decision or not? And so I just think before any sort of vote, it's important for all of us to be really clear on what would the reality be with those kinds of recommendations or decisions from administration and what the board role is.
Do you want to answer, or do you want to let Kate speak and then answer?
Either, or it may be easiest so it's not forgotten. Again, so there are two pieces to it. One, the board has the ability to change the policies to shape those decisions the way that it chooses. So that's in the board's purview. So that concern is potentially non sequitur. Board is the one that decides what those policies are for the executive limitations. The one caveat is that under Vermont statute, operations and how we carry out the work, regardless of whether you're policy governance or not, the majority of operations is in the hands of the administrator. So the smaller decisions like lawn mowing and things like that most certainly are an operational decision that's reserved for administration under Vermont statute, regardless of policy governance or not, as well as some of the larger decisions that are there. But as far as policy governance is concerned, as long as you're not violating that Vermont statute and what it requires, you shape it the way that you want to have the control or lack of control that you want.
Kate first.
Thanks. I just want to echo Lisa's confusion. I went back when when it was brought up that sixth graders were potentially moving to the middle school, and it had seemed like that had been a sure thing. I went back through all of the policies that we had written to try to find any place where the superintendent could even make a interpretation about the limits there. So me as a board member, I would expect to be involved in the decision to move an entire grade of students from one school to another school. That might be just me, and all the rest of you don't think that that is within our purview, but I had that expectation, and I could not find anywhere in the policies where I could even point to, oh yeah, this is where I would want to see the limitations on moving students between the schools. And that was on the heels of what Lisa was talking about, this big restructuring conversation where it was completely within our purview and our decision about moving students between the schools. So I too don't know where the lines are, and I'm not comfortable passing the policies forward where I'm not clear on what the lines are, because I think that's irresponsible of us as a board. For me personally, you all might know where the lines are, but I don't know where they are, which is why I supported taking a pause tonight and looking at what Donovan wrote and maybe coming back to change those policies, as Lane keeps reminding us that we can do. I think they need to be changed. I don't think they are clear enough to for me to do my job as a board member. So I would like to revisit them and change them, as Lane says we can.
Any other discussion? Okay. If there's no other discussion, we can just move forward with the second read. Is that the board's will? Ready for a second?
Yes. Yes.
All right, so if there's no recommendation to the policies as it stands, it's time. Need a motion to adopt policy governance policies. Making sure we're clear, these are not executive limitations, that's what we're going through and revising and changing.
Adrian, I'm sorry. I don't understand how we're not considering Donovan's rewrites recommended changes. Like, I don't understand the procedure that we're going through right now. You're asking if there's anybody do we have any changes? Donovan has changes. He presented all of these changes. So I don't see how we can ignore what he's presented while asking other people for.
I can try to make that clear.
Okay.
Sorry. I guess then to move forward with the second read, is there a motion to accept Donovan's changes in full or in partial. Does anyone want to do that? And then if not, we can move forward. Is that more clear?
I thought he only asked for discussion.
You did, but Kate's asking I just want that, I just.
That would be another
trying to-
change to
There
the
is
agenda.
possibly not read it. It's 5 minutes.
No, it's not a change.
It's changing, yes, it's a
It's
discussion. Yeah,
during the
Wanted-
second
okay.
read, someone is making suggested changes, which is an acceptable part of the second. Right?
Yeah, I'm asking the board. Do people want to look at them, accept them, change them in full, change them in part? Is there any will to do that?
I would like to look at them and. Yes.
I second that one.
Lois, could you state your motion?
Sure. I think it would be a good idea to look at policies and consider the changes that Donovan has proposed and make a decision as a board whether we want to make all of the changes that he's proposed, make some of the changes, or leave the policy the way it is. But I think that since he's done all this work, all this time in it, I think it's worth looking at what our options might be.
Okay.
Things that we may not have considered prior to this.
All right.
If we're gonna do that, then we're gonna need to see them as hours of time from the originals to what's
Yeah,
redacted, what's changed.
It will take some time.
I think, and that's fine, Lisa, I'm assuming you're gonna second that?
Yeah.
Okay, I would, for the discussion on that motion, if we're going to do that, which is fine, I would like the board to decide tonight how it's being done, what the time frame is, so this is not a perpetuation of, kicking the can down the road for 6, 7 months.
Yeah, I agree.
So I would like that discussed and identified right now, please.
And before anybody else speaks, Casey's brought up, we're going into budget season. So that's what I'm concerned about myself, for all of us. I've limited time as it is. Just putting it out there.
Do you have a
Just beware.
proposal of how you'd like to do it and what the timeline would be?
Well, we're obviously not going to be doing all of them at once. I would think maybe a couple of policies per meeting, or
What does everybody think about a special meeting?
I would be willing to do.
Yeah, so it's just done. I just cannot, I feel like this is like the next reiteration of like an issue that will just drag on for months, and I really would, I guess, we're just becoming so ineffectual. And that's fine, I'm happy to keep doing this, but we've got to start as a board being more effective, being, timelines and, the accountability to it.
And that's from, again, come back to. It, again, makes sense to me that we adopt policy governance as it was written on the second read. And then go back and revisit these policies and match executive
Good point.
limitations.
Very good point.
Instead of bogging down the board
Good
and
point.
all of its work heading into budget season. Because we still have the latitude to make those changes. We don't have to do it all right now.
Okay.
We have successfully navigated several budget seasons without this policy, without policy governance. And so adopting something that we aren't feeling certain of and we would like more time for seems irresponsible to me, that we should be able to take the time, and including if it means a special meeting, another first read and another second read, and have those conversations so that we really do understand where the lines are and what our rules are.
What I'm understanding is we can accept it and make the changes as we move along. Correct? So we can accept
Policy.
policy governance as it's written right now. And then take a few policies at a time
And review them.
and review them with the changes that Donovan has suggested and any changes that we might want to add.
I would be totally honest.
So we're kind of moving ahead, but not limiting ourselves to accepting it the way it is right now.
I'm comfortable with that.
But
You're moving forward and then you can go at, so take 3 or 4 or take 5 at a whack.
Yeah.
And start concentrating on once we've adopted.
Okay, so if I'm understanding right, so the motion on the board right now, Lois, was for us to just, what you had talked about was taking being kind of at the same time looking at both of them kind of side by side. What you just described is a little different.
well, it really is the same thing, except it's saying yes to where we are right now with policies as they are and making changes in a few chunks. If we agree.
Okay, so but there's a motion and a second, so I think we need to address the current motion that you made, and if you're looking to change it, hold on one second, Kate. If you're looking to change it, we'll need to address that motion. And then if you want,
Okay.
and then we can do another one, excuse me, Kate.
Just want to say that I feel like it exposes us to risk by approving unclear policies. And I'm not comfortable with that. So my preference would be to have a special meeting to review all of the policies and make the changes that we see fit and or keep them the same, but make sure everybody is clear. When you know better, you do better. I didn't know as much as I know now before, and I'd like to do better. And I feel like it is a risk to go forward with unclear policies that we don't have a consistent understanding of where those lines are. I also echo Lisa's kind of sentiment. We don't have to do this before budget season. We can focus on the budget season and we can do this after the budget. There is a lot going on. Do we really need to focus all of our energy on this right now when we're contending with all of the uncertainty in the state of education in Vermont? I would say table it until after we get through a few of these hurdles, but I understand that might feel like regression.
Thank you. All right. Amber, are you able to, because there was a little bit of, are you able to read back Lois's initial policy?
Frankly, no.
Okay.
This is what I've written and you can tell me how to edit it. Please. Ms. Perla moved to review Mr. Nichols' draft in comparison to the original draft and consider changes that are proposed and make a decision as a board.
Well, that was kind of what I said.
So that's what I would have said.
All right, so what the board needs to do now is there is a motion and a second on the table, so we need to vote on this motion. And then if you are looking to alter, change, discuss further, then we can,
We restate it one more time.
If I can
Please.
try to clarify what I meant, what I was saying was that we did the training for policy governance. I think we were all in favor of moving in that direction. Now we're in the place where the policies need to be written, adjusted, and addressed. Donovan took the time to look at all those policies and make some suggestions that we all might appreciate. So what I was suggesting was that we move ahead with policy governance and look at the changes that we can make as we go along. That, if that makes sense. Is that clearer now?
Kind of, it's still a little obtuse to me. I think what you're saying is a motion to approve policy governance as a second read. Here, and then do what we had originally intended to, is to go back and address the policies.
Individual.
Right.
Yep.
When-
So just the point, what you're describing is policy governance.
Right, so I'm saying, like,
And,
Well, that's.
and even after this year, the executive limitations, you review them on a regular schedule yearly to be able to make changes if things aren't, the way that should be. So, yeah, it's good.
Right, well,
Highlight the important point.
The other thing I think all right, are we clear on that motion?
I would draw the second.
And I'm not clear.
You're not clear on the motion?
I'm not clear on the motion. I don't understand what I'm hearing is kind of two things that are opposing in my mind. I'm hearing we're going to approve the second read and we're going to read Donovan's and do that work. And to me, they're one or the other. If we're going to go through and approve the second read, then we need to consider everybody's suggestions, including Donovan's rewrites, which means we have to open them up and do that tonight before we can go ahead and do approve the second read. So I don't know how to do both.
I agree. Did you hear, Lane describing what we're trying to do and what I think the revision of each policy as we go through is policy governance. I don't know how to explain it any differently anymore.
Yeah, we've approved policy governance as a concept. We're now approving the individual policies and Lane's giving us our interpretation, right? And I am saying if we're going to go through and approve every policy, then we have to consider every board member's recommendations for revisions, which includes Donovan's. And so we either have to do that tonight, when we say, okay, sorry, I don't have if we look at number 1, executive limitations, E121, if Donovan has an E121, we need to look at that and consider his recommendations. I think it's more efficient for us to do that in a separate meeting where we can do them all at once. But I wouldn't feel comfortable looking at E121 and doing a second read without also taking into consideration Donovan's recommendations tonight or a special meeting. And maybe I'm not articulating myself clearly, but that feels important for Donovan's voice to be heard.
The way I understood it was we were going to approve the policies, second read, and then at a later date, we're going to take 2 or 3 at a time, Donovan's, and compare them, and we can make adjustments to the ones we just approved tonight. We don't have to do it tonight. We don't have to look at his tonight. And in the future, we can. That's the way I understand it. So if you're going to make a motion, Lois, I wouldn't even put in.
Right, simple, yep.
I would just.
I guess I'm a little confused. Because I feel like, isn't that what we were doing, is just going through the policies in chunks?
Yes.
Not all at once. We were just approving the second read of policy governance. Right?
So we all sat down at the
Exactly.
beginning, if you remember, with the consultant and went through all the policies and wordsmith them effectively with her guidance.
Yes.
And then there was a first read on those. Today is these, and I myself also thought we had somehow done a second read. Apparently it didn't happen, but so we were operating under the impression that we had created these policies together, done a first read, done a second read, and had now moved into EL interpretation, which is what he's been bringing to us. Lisa pointed out that, I think it was you, pointed out that we had not in fact done a second read. So the purpose of tonight is to do a second read of the policies that we had created. The way policy governance works is Lane does presents the ELs. We then read them just like policies, like, okay, I don't like what that is, or that does not sit with how, what I'm thinking, which is some of what, Donovan's thoughts are, like, so as the ELs come up, his thoughts will be addressed. And then, if at the ends, when Lane presents his ends, and, we're finding like, what we've created is not getting us where we want, then we go back and we address the policies to reflect what we're looking to do clearer. that's what I'm saying. I feel like this is getting very boogered up, that it has to be this all or nothing. That is
Right.
not what this process is. Policy governance is a living document. It is not, you know, a one and done. This is very, I don't want to use the word fluid, like it's not, there's not substance to it, but it's a living document.
I understand.
Am I making sense to everybody now?
Yes.
Yeah, I do think that makes perfect sense. But typically at either a first read or a second read of policies, whether that's in policy governance or otherwise, when someone has suggested revisions, we consider them. And this seems
Okay.
really different from that in saying we should accept the policies without considering those. So that's what I'm
So let,
not liking.
okay. The only way I think we're gonna be able to move this part forward is is there like if someone wants to make a motion?
Just already motion on the table.
Lisa withdrew her second. She
Okay.
didn't like or didn't agree with Lois's interpretation. So,
So I'm move that we adopt policy governance on the second read.
I second.
all right, I just want to be clear. So we're going to approve the second read of policy governance as the policies as they stand, if that's the board's will, understanding that we will go through the ELs. And at that time, we will also be addressing any revisions, not just Donovan's. I mean, I'm hoping that we're all
Yes,
ready
thank you.
and coming to the board with
Yes,
thoughts.
that's my motion.
Second.
So as part of the discussion, I'm just wanting to clarify that voting for this now would be voting to ignore suggestions that board members have made.
Not at all.
Can you help me to understand that? I'm really trying. I don't mean to be confrontational. I'm really just trying. So can you help me to understand how this is not a rejection of considering revisions that have been made before?
We're just putting it off. We can't do them all at once. I mean, this is just gonna drag on till March. And then I think that's what people want, some people. And we gotta move forward.
So
There's a motion on the second.
I think the claim that you know what some people want and that that's why they're doing things is.
I think we're gonna get really far into the weeds right now. Can we just stick to this?
we have a.
So, yeah,
This is still discussion of exactly this motion.
but that part wasn't. That was about intentions and your interpretation of what he said. I really want us to keep this high level today. There's two questions. Does the board want to not accept the second read and put it off to, I guess, consider Donovan's changes? Or do we want to move forward? Again, I think the sticking point is honestly, we thought we were already there. I almost feel like we're addressing a technicality, but, and then with each executive limitation that comes forward, we will engage
As a board.
as a board. I'm struggling why this has to be an all or nothing,
Exactly.
you know.
The motion on the table right now is to.
There is no motion, you withdrew your second.
Yes, but there has been a
Has there been a
motion.
second on that one?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't. Did you tell me, I'm sorry, my
I
apologies.
move we policy governance on the second read as written.
Okay, who seconded that? Okay, sorry, I missed that.
No worries.
Okay,
So,
continue.
so my comment is that that motion is to accept policies that board members are wanting to consider revisions. And I understand that there are always future opportunities to review policy and change policy, and I think that's really important. But why would we accept policy now that board members are wanting to further review or look at. I also disagree with the idea that it is only a technicality in that the second read, like part of the reason we don't just have one read is so that there is time in between to.
Elise, I understand that. We thought there was a second read. That's the problem. The rest of the board thought there was a second read. So it's not that we don't understand the purpose of a second read. We
Okay.
had thought it had happened.
Okay. But the fact that it didn't
Yep, which
means
is what
that
we're
there
addressing.
wasn't that opportunity to put forward revisions. So even if we all thought it was, and that's how we were acting, I'm not criticizing that in any way. I'm saying there wasn't this opportunity. The reason we're fixing that and having the second read now is so that there is that opportunity. And voting to put it through just because we thought we had before and there weren't objections or revisions at that time seems unfair to like how the process works and when we are supposed to bring revisions forward.
Policy governance process is to do that after adopting policy governance. So.
I think I can add clarity. There was a question out there about how can we move on without considering. That's the board's choice. That's your power. As a board, you can decide, no, we shouldn't. Or yes, well. And so being stuck because you don't feel that as a board, you have the right to make that decision, you do. So you can choose fully collectively as a board to say, yeah, we're going to move forward with Donovan's suggestions. Or as a board, you can just say, no, that's our right. You don't have to. But it's also your right to say that you do want to. So just as long as the board's clear on the authority that it has on that decision.
And I would just encourage you that moving forward with policies without considering how other board members think about that and would like to revise that is not something that, to me, seems like effective board action.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? All right, so the motion on the table right now, made by Casey, is to move forward with policy governance second read as it stands, seconded by Jerry. All in favor? Opposed?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right, Rick,
Yes.
Katie?
Yeah.
Jeff,
Yes.
Lois,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Lisa,
No.
Casey,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Kate,
No.
Donovan.
No.
The yeses have it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 3 noes. All right. Hold on. There is a request to move up the middle school presentation prior to the administrative reports. Does anybody object to that?
No.
Number 2 will now move into just the finance.
Thanks, everybody. I think this hopefully will be a more fun discussion than your last one. So I think discussing tax code might be a more fun discussion than the last one you had. I'm going to share my screen and I have some things that I'm going to pass out to you also. Anyone needs a brain break or a stretch break? Now would be a good time to do that.
Guys have my written spot.
And they just move that whole.
Mhm. Sure. Yeah. Okay, just making sure, let everyone feel included. Yeah.
Hey, can you see that presentation on screen?
I
Sure
am
can.
Thank you.
awesome. And if I need to, Kate, if it's helpful later, I can always share you the PDF version if you want to see it afterwards. I just pass out to everyone a copy of it so they can make notes and stuff like that. But if anyone, I can put the PDF version of it online, see if that's helpful for any of the public too. So so thank you guys for getting me in here to talk to you guys about middle school. Honestly, I feel like it's overdue that we talk about something that's going on in middle school. So I want to go over my objective with you all, which is to inform you all and the public listening tonight on the operations and structure of Green Mountain Middle School. Sometimes I kind of feel like, as a 7 through 12, and it's not at the fault of Green Mountain, but I think any 7 through 12, you can kind of overlook the middle school just because, you call Green Mountain Union High School just by default. So it can be really easy to forget two of your grades that are in the building. I did craft this. Those of you who don't know, my name is Brett. I teach 8th grade science. I'm also the middle school coordinator. I worked closely with a select group of middle schoolers that helped me throw some ideas together in this slideshow. I emailed like 12 students, and so basically whoever replied. Sometimes middle schoolers aren't always in the habit of checking their email in a less than week timely manner. So they're the ones that were really crucial in helping me work on this. And I do want to clarify, like tonight's objective is not at all about like where should 6th graders go. I'm just here to talk about the middle school, like what I think we're doing well. You're going to hear things that we can improve upon. You're going to hear middle schoolers talking about what they like, what they think we can improve upon. So it's just about the middle school. This is not about what should happen with 6th graders at all. I am just a teacher here in Green Mountain. I don't want to have any kind of part in that decision.
Thank
you. Okay. All right. So as a middle school, we definitely have these collective goals. And so, of course, I know you guys share these goals as well when it comes to, increasing math and ELA proficiency. Definitely want to increase well-being with our students, having a sense of community and belonging. We really are trying to collaborate across our middle school teams, but also in departments as well. And we want to expand cross-curricular and experiential learning opportunities. And I'll talk about each of these things and how I think we're doing those and where I think we have room to grow. I also want to mention that I realize that the writing on the slides is really, really small, but that version is the only one that gives you lines to write. So I thought that was more valuable to write some notes than being able to bring your magnifying glass. I also want to interject too at this point and say, like, if you have a question as it comes up, like, I'm used to like teaching with people being like, I have a question, and not like go to the lecture. And at the end, everyone saves all their questions for the end. Like if something comes up, you can raise your hand, but like I'm used to middle school, you can just yell it out too. That's totally fine. I know how to yield that. So if you just think of something and you want to ask as it comes up, I'd rather it be a discussion than it just be like me talking at you and then you holding everything to the end and then you forget it or it's not pertinent at that moment. So ask as it comes up if you would. Okay, so one of the big things for us is building community. We really do believe that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So I think that's really important as a middle school that you are showing students that you care about them. And so these are some ways that we are working on building community, building trust, and making relationships, critical to our school. So one thing that we did is we developed our middle school hallway, and I will talk about this more in a minute, but this whole hallway is just middle school now. So if you didn't know that, that's new in the last couple of years. There were no high school core classes down in this hallway. There is a little bit of overlap of foreign language that happens once or twice throughout the day, but other than that, all the middle school classes are up on this third floor. As a group, we walk the track on Fridays, and we always enjoy this because I never know which 3 or 4 students are going to walk with me and just have a conversation about anything. We take community building trips to Grafton Ponds and Echo Lake, where sometimes it's just about walking the trails, having a conversation with students that maybe I don't see as often, playing some games together. We do some regular award ceremonies. Last year we did a Vermont Green Up Day, and we plan to make this a regular tradition where we take our students out to a certain area in the town. Last year we went along Green Mountain Turnpike and collected cans and, as you can imagine, on the side of the road in Vermont, there were sinks and mattresses and tires and stuff like that. But it was really great because we coordinated with the actual town of Chester, and they helped us pick the spot. We told them where we were going, so that way they didn't have to send people there the next day, because we obviously did it on Friday and they did it on the actual weekend. So we were able to coordinate with them. And then we also craft our middle school schedule with the student in mind. And so we'll talk about the middle school schedule, what it looks like from a day-to-day basis. But I just think it's really important taking the students out of the classroom, because some of the most authentic moments with kids as a teacher happen outside of those 4 walls. That's where they tell you things about themselves that you don't normally hear. Sometimes it's really great things about, riding horses and stuff like that. And sometimes it's really traumatizing things that as a teacher, you're like, okay, I should probably make sure that you have a conversation with a guidance counselor, and that might have never actually come up. So making sure that we do things with kids just beyond our walls is really important for us as a middle school. When we were making a lot of these decisions, we as a group, we read The Anxious Generation. It's a really great book that I would recommend anyone that might have kids to read. It's not just about teaching, but it does talk about just how humans at a young age are rewiring their brains because of how the digital world is shaped right now. And we've used this a lot to sculpt what we're doing. So our takeaways from this group read, and again, this was on our own. This wasn't like an initiative. We just thought, we're making some decisions, we should do this with an informed mind. We decided to remove phones from students for the full day. So they lock them away in the morning and they get them again at the end of the day. We knew that we needed to provide students with unstructured time. That doesn't mean unsupervised time, but unstructured, meaning there's nothing really for me to tell you what to do. We want to get kids outside. We want to provide opportunities for creativity, and that relationships are critical for development. So these were our big takeaways in trying to sculpt what does our middle school need to look like.
Right, you define we, you keep saying we.
Yeah, I'm just one member of a team, and I'll talk later about within the schedule how I am a part of that team. But just I'm one of 4 middle school teachers, 4 8th grade teachers, and there's 4 7th grade teachers. There's a couple special educators. Obviously, Kate Leaf is now our middle school principal. So when I am talking here about decisions, yes, I'm the middle school coordinator, but I'm not the middle school dictator. So I coordinate discussions. I'll bring talking points from the book and say how do we feel about this chapter? But it wasn't like, hey, we're going to do this year, if that makes sense.
You may address this a little further in, but are you going to talk? I'd just like to know a little bit more about the unstructured time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and if I don't, maybe circle that question. If you feel like I don't answer it by the end, please bring up that question again. Okay, so the middle school layout, as I said a second ago, our hallway, we wanted to make sure that it was more cohesive as a middle school core team. So we could check in and go, okay, what are you doing for this unit? Is there room for us to work together? We now have middle school only bathrooms, which we felt is really important for development, that middle schoolers could use their bathrooms without feeling like someone who's 6 years older than you is sharing that same space as you. We have laptop carts in homerooms. And so this has been great for us because this is where students are storing their phones. They'll come to homeroom in the morning, they'll grab their laptop out of the cart, and they'll put their phone in to replace where their laptop was. This also resolves a different problem, which was laptops coming to school dead every day. So when they brought them home and they would lose their charger, and now there's a charger in the cart every day that they can put in. If they want to bring their laptop home to work on something, we have a sign-up sheet and they just tell us what they're going to work on. they sign it out, and they bring it home. So we're not restricting their ability to do work at home. It's just a different process. Easy access, obviously, to the library being on the 3rd floor. Closer rooms allowing for collaboration between teams and teachers. For example, the 7th grade science teacher and I do these engineering projects, and we can just open up our side door and they can walk right between the 2 classrooms without having to, change hallways or anything like that. We have recently implemented a digital smart pass system, so the kids just log out, they go, they come back in, they log in, and so it's really easy for us to just, if we needed to, let's say, with multi-tiered systems of support, we can track if a student is spending like an hour of the class every single day, going to the nurse, going to the guidance counselor, going to the bathroom 7 times. We can kind of look at what the data is telling us how much time they're actually spending out of the classroom.
Does it help with monitoring how many kids are in the bathroom at once?
Yeah, we can see exactly. And we haven't gotten as far into it because we're only about a month in, but we could set up the system to say only 2 people, no matter what room they're in, could log out at the same time. Or we could say student A can't be out of the room at the same time as student B.
Right.
So if we have issues between kids, they wouldn't be able to sign out at the same time. So we haven't gone that deep into the system yet. Like literally, we just got the laptops installed in the rooms for kids to sign out because it's like a kiosk system. Kids walk up to it, put their name in, click go, and they walk out. So we're, like I said, 4 weeks into really utilizing it, but we're diving into what are some possible things. We want to start with like freedom.
Right.
And then as we need to, we don't want to start with like, we're over monitoring where you're going, what you're doing, all that kind of stuff. And that's not the intent at all.
Makes sense.
Yep. We have our guidance counselor on this 3rd floor, which is great. So if they want to go check in with the guidance counselor, they walk down to that room, they can knock on the door, he's right there. And we also have our principal now on the 3rd floor as well. So again, if they have a reason to talk to Miss Leith about an issue going on, it's not like walking downstairs in the main office, which they still do to see Kelly and stuff like that. But it's nice that they can report something and it doesn't take up any of their class time. They can do it between classes really quickly, discreetly, and I think that's been helpful for them too. Okay, so here's our schedule throughout the day. Later I talk about how we have an evolving schedule, but that's really because we're willing to change things if we feel like we need to. But we start our day in homeroom or reading. And even this reading time has evolved this year where maybe there's some days where like we're playing a game kit or a Kahoot together just as like a fun thing to do in the morning and get to know you. And then other days it's like you need to find a book that you want to read for fun, right? It's open reading time. It can be a magazine, it can be an audiobook, it can be a graphic novel. There's no like criteria there. It doesn't have to be your grade level book. It doesn't have to be, whatever you're reading in your ELA class. It can just be something for fun that you want to read about. I've had some students pull things offline, like what's the recent like NFL power rankings. They want to read which team and all that kind of stuff. Sure, that's fine. It's reading. I don't care. We're not gonna gatekeep what you want to read. Here's our class schedule. 50 minutes of class. We have a 10-minute break in here because we found that 3 classes back to back where it was a little stressful. So we have a 10-minute break where again, they can walk the halls. Their hall, it's not really plural, but they can talk with each other. They can sit in one room and just have a conversation. They can have an extended bathroom time, that kind of thing. And that's been nice also for teachers to get a break to go to the bathroom because it's a long time in there that we can't seem to get a break. But then we have Miss Leith standing there in the hallway, just kind of making conversations with kids and I can help you with. Our guidance counselor pops into the hallway, checks in with kids. So having a little break for them kind of allows them to get a little bit of that middle school energy out during that time. And then following that, we have our advisory / wellness. And so this will rotate on days, what we're doing. So advisory time could look like we are walking the track together, right? Like I talked about earlier. Advisory could look like we're doing IXL. So we have one day a week where we dedicate the advisory time to working on pinpointing an IXL or to working on some of those skills that IXL says they need to work on. So, and I'm sure if we dove into that IXL data, you would see that middle school is consistently doing their IXL minutes, and I would credit that time for that reason. We also have wellness. And so wellness is where students can sign up to do different activities that they want to do. Some of that being some of the unstructured things that Adrian was asking about. So they could sign up for gym time. Sometimes we structure it like, hey, we're gonna play dodgeball today. Sometimes we unstructure it or don't provide structure, and it's like, you want to grab a basketball, you can do that. If you want to grab a soccer ball, you can do that. We've had football. I'll talk about that more later. I have a list of activities, but that's another option. Set time, it stands for student enrichment time. And so they can sign up to be with a teacher at the beginning of the week. They'll pick their whole schedule and they can say, I want to go to this teacher this day, this teacher this day to work on other things that they're falling behind on. So they have choice in where they want to go and what teacher they want to work with. Lunch. There's about a half hour for lunch. We find that middle schoolers eat in about 9 minutes. They just throw it down. So a lot of students decide to use the other like 20-ish minutes to go outside. There's a big wall right next to the cafeteria, that gym wall, where kids will like throw a tennis ball against the wall or soccer or throw a frisbee around or just sit outside. There is picnic tables in that area too. And we have our guidance counselor down there at lunch and he kind of walks around, makes conversation, but also checks in on them if they're going outside and stuff. And then we go into our last class, and then at the end, they have their electives, elective 1 and 2. And that's also where I'm going to move this. Scott. This is also where the middle school has common planning time, where we will meet together to talk about things. And you'll find out that that's where we make a lot of our like crucial decision making and where maybe we decide to change things. Okay.
I'm sorry, with the electives, so the kids are in class? So the electives-
Kids are in class, and the middle school core teachers, science, math, social studies, and language arts, we all have common planning time. So we don't have students at that time because they're with like art or PE or foreign language. Yep. And so this allows us to work together to create a lot of these things. Like when Cheryl was asking, who is that we? This is it when it becomes the collective we as a middle school. That wellness time, like I was saying, not to be confused with wellness space, as you'll hear in a minute. Wellness space was developed after wellness time. And so we're actually thinking of like how to split those names up so it's not confusing, but we're just in this weird limbo time of two names that sound similar. So you'll hear about wellness space in a minute. But here are some of the recent activities. We ask kids what they want too. We say like, was there anything that wasn't offered last time that you would like to do? So, you know, students will mention like hairstyling. Like that wasn't our suggestion. There was a group of students who said, can we just do each other's hair for 20 minutes? Okay, sure. We'll provide you a space to do that, right? Foursquare, if you haven't heard, Foursquare is kind of a big deal at Green Mountain. They go outside and they play Foursquare out by the snack shack. So a lot of things that kids sign up for. Of course, reading isn't going to appeal to everyone, but some people like that little quiet time. So they sign up for reading.
This is mandatory.
The time is mandatory. They have to pick something. Yep. No, the advisory wellness time, it's on off days. So if we're doing IXL one day, let's say on Wednesday, we might do IXL for those 20 minutes. Then on the next day, we would do wellness time.
Yeah, it's split out so much that you have to choose because there's no one adult to be with them.
Yeah, but all the core teachers are available at that time. So I might be like, oh, for this month, I'm gonna be the chess and board game room. So anyone who signed up for chess and board games, you're gonna come to my room, right? And so we have all of our teachers that are available for those activities. So we actually send out a survey to kids every month and say, what do you wanna do this month for wellness time? And they pick. Because of course they might get sick of chess and board games for more after 4 weeks of doing it twice a week. So at the end of that, there might be a new group who wants to do chess and board games. So we send a survey out to the kids and say, what do you want to do this month? And they pick what they want to do. Once in a while, you get like 1 or 2 kids in an activity, which is why we give them like, what's your second pick? Because if there's not enough people to run the activity, we can't have an adult chaperoning one person. We have 140 kids in the middle school this year. So we have to then say, okay, maybe what we could do is we'll combine some things. We've had times where we'll throw chess and board games in the same room as reading, and that adult can chaperone both of those things at the same time. So we make space as best as we can for what everyone wants to do, and we'll blend things together. Creative writing time and reading. No reason why those two things can't share a space. So we really try to make sense. We try to make it work with what kids want to do.
Wellness time and advisory. So you said they alternate, right?
Yep.
So is it always twice a week for wellness time, or is it 3 times a week, 1 week, and twice a week the next week?
It really depends on, like, let's say it's a full 5-day week, then it would be Monday, Wednesday, Friday would be advisory, and Tuesday, Thursday would be wellness. If it was like a weird 4-day week, the first day of the week is always advisory because we need to make sure that we sign kids up for this set time. That's when we're doing it, is during advisory. We're signing them up for where they want to go. So the first day of the week is advisory and then just rotates from there. So if it's like a weird, we're starting on a Wednesday.
No, I just didn't know if, like, okay, so you've got advisory Monday, Wednesday, Friday,
Yep.
and then the following week is actually wellness.
No, it'd have to
So
be
it's the same.
Yeah, it would have to be Monday
Yeah,
starts
yes.
with advisory. Exactly. Okay. So going into some things that we do collaboratively, interesting projects. Again, you might have heard of some of these things, like they're not necessarily new to the middle school, but maybe you've heard of Battle Physics, where it's a great project where the 7th grade, I think it's usually the algebra class within 7th grade, works with a high school physics class, and they make these projectile launchers, and it's this giant competition. If you haven't heard of it, if you haven't seen it, I really recommend you come in one of those days when the competition is going on, because the gym just becomes this giant battle arena, and kids are like quietly doing math and like all with the idea of trying to hit their projectile launcher at a target to beat the neighboring teams. So really recommend that. Science engineering challenges, that's where Mrs. Hutchins and I, the 7th grade science teacher, will do these projects. Just sometimes it's as simple as like make an object float down as slow as possible, right? Or what are the health of the trees around Green Mountain? And so we spend time looking at how do we assess the health of a tree, and then we go outside, and every group of students, like every 5 students, will get like a different section of trees around Green Mountain, and they go out and they collect data on it, and in the end they create a presentation. History Day, which some of you again may have heard about, but our social studies teachers we'll have students present down in the gallery downstairs, and we've had students go on to the National History Day down in DC. I believe Icona Seville was the most recent one last year. She won $1,000 for that. Like, it's a big deal. It's awesome. And so it's worth recognizing. We have some scientific investigation presentations, kind of like a more mature version of a science fair. And then I mentioned at the last board meeting about my wilderness class, how we take trips and go on canoe trips and hiking trips and stuff like that. So we try as much as possible to do some of these things. Yes.
I haven't kept up with it in a few years, but has Mr. Garvin been beaten yet?
Yes. So Mr. Garvin for Battle Physics, their team name was always called the Dream Crushers. And the goal was always the real race is for second place was their slogan. Because him and Miss Bushy created this like pneumatic with a button press and it pressures it. But they have gotten beaten by, I believe the first time they got beaten was by Evan Moser's group. If you guys remember Evan Moser, it's no surprise that they beat Garvin because he went on to do, I think he's like studying mechanical engineering right now. Yeah, he has been beaten. And I think every year now, ever since they've been beaten, their cockiness has gone down a little bit. So they've been beaten more than once at this point. Okay. One thing we're really trying to expand upon is recognizing our high achievers. And this can be really challenging to do, and it's gotten harder in the proficiency years, as you might know, because how do you take a system that existed for so long under like, okay, obviously A's are the way to measure students, and then you redesign the whole thing, and it's hard to redraft the recognition to keep up with that. So it took us a couple of years to figure out what that might look like. One thing that we have done for a long time is Student of the Month. So at our awards assembly that we do at the end of every quarter, we always recognize one student in each grade, 7th and 8th, that we call our Student of the Month. The criteria for Student of the Month is that it's someone who demonstrates exemplary work habits, academic achievement in their daily school learning, meeting all homework and daily work requirements, being prepared for class, having good attitude, has a personal commitment for lifelong learning. A Student of the Month is also exemplary in their relationships with other students. They're honorable, accept others, treat all people with respect, care, and well-being of the people around them. And so that's something that we have been continuing for a long time. It's evolved a little bit over the last few years, but we've continued that. And this quarter, we recently rolled out Honor Roll, and this quarter was all A's. Now we know that there might be room, like we saw some students that like had 188. I'm like, I know, but this is what we're going with for the first quarter that we bring it back. This is our criteria, but it doesn't mean that we are against expanding like levels of honor roll. But for the first quarter, we had to make a decision and we wanted to start it. And so this quarter it was all A's. We had an honor roll breakfast where all the students that made it came down and had French toast and bacon, and they, Andy did a nice job, as he always does, down in the cafeteria to honor those students. And then we have our end of the year recognition, which is our academic excellence. And so this is going to be students that have met proficient with distinction in all summatives in a class. And so that's a big deal, right? Proficient with distinction is going above the standard at that level. And we're hoping what that shows us is that they are ready to go beyond just the basic level of ninth grade. So that might mean that they could do a semester-long class in ELA in high school versus a year-long class, right? Because they're already at a higher level compared to their peers. And this could open up freedoms for them at the high school level. They could take more classes, right? They wouldn't have to be stuck in a year-long ELA or a year-long math class because they've already demonstrated that they're working above their peers. So we're hoping this gives them a little bit of freedom, and teachers then have more freedom to work with students that aren't working at such a high level, right? Within their class. So it gives them a smaller class size when it comes to students that are struggling, and we can put some of these higher level learners into more challenging classes. And then we have a scholar leader. Oh, please, Lisa.
Oh, just real fast. Can you say anything about the student culture around these things? I'm just thinking about some 7th and 8th graders who would rather, paint themselves blue than be called the student of the month in front of their peers.
Yeah.
Or the other way around, some for whom it's just incredibly important. And if they miss it with an 88, they're crushed. So
Yeah.
just kind of thinking about how are students interpreting these.
And this would be great if I did invite students to come tonight. The small group that I had, I've got dance, I've got basketball, I've got, whatever. But I would say that student of the month in particular, they're whispering, who's it gonna be? Because oftentimes when we read our little paragraph about who the student's gonna be, you kind of read it in a way that's suspenseful. The September student of the month is someone that always shows care in all the work they do. They open doors for people, they put up chairs, they ask teachers how they're doing in the morning, right? And slowly everyone's like, oh, I know who it is. And then you're like, okay, this person, when they show up early for basketball practice, they're like, okay, now we know it's and so there really is this I hope I get it atmosphere around student of the month. They get not only a certificate, but we have these nice custom plaques that say Green Mountain Middle School Student of the Month. They're, made of wood, and they got the Green Mountain logo on them. I should have brought one. I got some in my classroom right now, but they're really beautiful. And I assume they love receiving those, and it's been a pretty coveted thing. Honor roll, we just listed at the awards ceremony. We didn't give out anything. So I would say overall, it's been well received. But it's hard for me to say that because I'm the teacher and I would have to ask the students that question specifically. I haven't heard anyone say, I am terrified of going up there when I get student of the month. And then the last thing I just want to mention is scholarly leader. This is our end of the year big award for someone who just demonstrates everything that we hope a student would encompass when it comes to being kind to others, year-long academic, being driven. It doesn't have to be someone that receives student of the month, but sometimes it is. This used to be NELM's scholarly leader. People might remember this, where they used to hold a NELM's New England League of Middle School lunch that they would do up at St. Johnsbury, I believe. And they kind of stopped doing it during COVID because they couldn't get people together. And so we just turned it into our own thing that we do here at Green Mountain to continue honoring students at a high level. And again, we have this plaque that we make for them, but we keep it here in the hallway for a year to kind of say hey, look at how hard the student worked. And then they will receive that plaque at the end of the year and they can bring it home. So we're trying to kind of put it up on a wall, put them on a pedestal, so to speak, and make others kind of look up to them is at least our hope. The wellness space is a space that, again, I cannot take credit for this one, but I think Jess Kessler presented to you all about this, right? She got a rolling grant to make this happen. It's a space downstairs. Again, if you haven't seen it, I can't really explain it too well other than just saying it's a space for students to go downstairs, to request, to have a little break. We can also suggest students to go, hey, take a little break real quick. It's staffed by Brittany Merrill, who is well certified in working with students in this capacity. They can engage with her, or they can just sit there quietly and she can leave them alone. It's up to them. 5-7 minutes, then they return to class. And if they need more intense help, then they can receive that. But we just found that if the student is in that mental place where like, I can't do work, I'm angry, and they can't get over it, you're never going to reach them if they're already in that state. So you might as well get out of the room, take a deep breath, chill out for a few seconds, and then try and come back refreshed. That's way better. I'd rather have you miss 5 minutes if it means you come back being refreshed. Here's some feedback that I got from the students that I was working with. So some positive things that I want to start with. So what do you like about the middle school? One of the first things I heard was that they trust faculty to handle issues. They felt like class sizes feel right in that elementary school for them felt too big. They loved going to Grafton Ponds. They love having activities for wellness, hiking. They love that they have more independence compared to the elementary school. Teachers respect students and help with work, and that they like having their third floor space and interact with high schoolers less often or very little. The classes, the bells also don't really overline except for the elective time when the high school teachers are taking in middle school students. So even if they need to go downstairs, rarely do they interact with them. Not that we're like really avoiding it, but it is nice that they kind of feel like they have their own space. Here are some things for feedback that they think could be different. And remember, I'm fascinated with students. The first thing was a bigger mirror and coat hooks in the girls' bathroom. And I said, okay, I'm sure that's a huge problem. Right? That was the first thing they said, though. And I feel like that in a way, I was like kind of vindicated of like, that was your first gripe that you came up with of complaints you have about the middle school is you want a bigger mirror and co-hooks. I'm like, okay. And like, honestly, we can make that happen. Like one thing, like I said, our middle school team meets regularly. And so we've already discussed this. We've already looked at the pros and the cons here. We've already had discussions about this feedback. We're already in discussion about how to give them some of these things. So we can get you a mirror and we can get you hooks for your, because they put their backpacks, I guess, in the sink to do their hair or something. And I was like, that's gross. I didn't know that until I had this conversation with them. So I'm like, we can get you hooks and we can get you a bigger mirror. It's not that big of a deal. They felt like IXL, they feel like some teachers are judging their ability based on IXL. I can think of a student who I know who's dyslexic, and IXL says they read at a 3rd grade level, but I've watched them read books at a much higher level. So that is certainly not a fair representation of that student. So we need to make sure that as faculty, as a school, that we are not saying that, oh, look, students did something at things where they get questions on either ELA or math, and it pinpoints them like what level they're working at, and it gives them feedback on how to improve on something. So if their skills are like, oh, you're really good at arithmetic, or you're really good at, let's say more specifically, you're really good at functions or something, but you're really bad at doing something in like converting decimals into fractions or something. It will give them those specific skills to work on because it says there's a deficiency in that area. It's great that it pinpoints them, but it can be really challenging if they're stuck in one area and it says they're like, you're a 5th grade level. And really, I'm struggling for a different reason, like dyslexia. Okay. Some kids sneak phones, is what we said. Like they pretend to put their phone in the cart. I've heard that some students will buy a broken phone off Amazon, put that one in as their phone, and then keep their phone on them. I know their kids are one step ahead of us always, right? I will say we don't like if we saw their phone on them in the hallway or whatever, obviously we would take it. So it's when are they using it? Maybe when they go to the bathroom, other things like that. So we just need to make sure that we're trying to crack down on that. And the kids felt like it's not fair. Like I'm putting my phone in, sure. I don't want them to have their phone. So we got to figure out a way to work on that. Set, homeroom, and advisory are too short. They want more time for that because it feels like it's 20 minutes and they don't get into anything. They would love an escalator, so I'm bringing it up to the board. The 3rd floor is a lot of steps.
Seems reasonable.
Yeah, I know. They want to be able to choose their special classes. They feel like sometimes having to rotate through all of them, they don't love them all, and they want to be able to choose. They would love some allotted days, like with work. Like, can I get 5 sick days that I can use throughout the year? They would like a separate middle school bell, because the middle school bells go off in our hallway, and we've trained our brains to ignore them. But we would love our own. They would love their own bells. They feel that the grading system is a little complicated and it's hard to understand letters versus grades. Some things are new this year, and I just don't know if it's new versus complicated. So maybe it's just more time with it. I'm not sure. Even more outside time. I love being outside, so I certainly agree. And they want some official Foursquare rules because they seem like they say certain kids make up certain rules every single time they play. So I can't disagree with that. Catch-up day every so often. They want like a day dedicated to getting work done, and they want it to be predetermined so they can plan for it. And they want a half-day schedule. One way to do this is they felt like, could we do a half-day schedule in the morning with classes, and then maybe the afternoon they could use to do some makeup work, which I thought was a responsible way that they even thought up solutions. Yeah. And again, the middle school team was like, well, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this, we can talk to Kate about the escalator, we can do this, right? So a lot of these things we've already just started to discuss, like, how do we allow this to happen in an organized way? We can do it. One of the great things about the middle school schedule and the middle school model that we have is that our schedule only affects us, not counting those elective classes, which means we can actually, like on a random Wednesday, if we want to, we could blow up our schedule and go, okay, they're going to have classes for 30 minutes, and then they're going to have completion time and recovery time for work. We have that freedom as a middle school to change our schedule randomly to just allow for kids to have that kind of completion time. So we can plan for that, which is really nice. It doesn't affect everyone in the building for us to change our schedule, except for those elective times, and we usually just don't touch them because it doesn't align with everybody else. So we'll just say, everything is different, except for these 2 days, or 2 periods, sorry. So that's what I wanted to say with the team collaboration. We meet to discuss those things. We discuss challenges. We make changes. We organize. We plan. We reflect on the outcomes. And some of those recent changes are the separate 3rd floor, the phone-free system, the wellness time, the green up day, and like I said, our evolving schedule that we can change whenever we feel like we need to. And we're already discussing about maybe looking at how to allow them to have more set time so they don't feel like they only have 20 minutes where they start something, they get so involved in that essay, and the time ends, and then they feel like they didn't get anywhere. So we're already having a conversation as a middle school about maybe we need to change that at the semester break. And then I kind of want to close with just looking at something that I believe is just incredibly powerful. We asked the kids, if there was an issue, do you feel like there's an adult you trust that you can talk to? And my little group immediately, absolutely, yes. And this is backed up with the YSBIRT survey, which is an anonymous survey that we give to all students. In this case, it was just middle school students for this data. And at school, is there an adult who really cares about me? Obviously, it's posed to them. There is an adult that really cares about me. And 83% of the students said, yes, there is an adult that really cares about me. You know, I think that really is an important piece there too. It's not just cares about me. We're not trying to ignore the 15 responses that said no. Like, how do we reach them? I know our guidance counselor has been going through every single middle schooler and pulling them into his office just to have a conversation. Even if they're a red flag student or not, just saying, how are you? What's your name? You know, having a conversation with them to make sure that he knows everyone. And that's awesome. And if you were advocating for 6th graders to attend GM next year as 7th graders, why should they? And they said, we have a really good staff. I know I'm up here as a teacher saying this, but I promise you, I didn't fabricate any of that. That's what they told me in that meeting. I know, yeah. You get extra outdoor time. And if you have questions that I didn't answer during the conversation and you want to pose them, I'd love for anyone to ask them.
I just have some feedback.
Okay.
One of the things I really liked was recognizing high achievement.
Yeah.
I think that I've seen over the years in an effort to make everything, you know, kind of fair and level, that people that were achieving at a higher level weren't being challenged or were kind of just getting lost. And what do you have to strive for? So I actually really appreciate that you guys are doing that. And thank you. This was fantastic.
Yeah, it was.
This
Yeah.
was
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. if other things come up or if things come up in public comments that you feel like you can't address because you're not the one that gave the presentation, you all know my email address. Please feel free to reach out. And I would also like to add, like, come to our school, walk the halls. You can come during any of those special events like Battle Physics or projects that we're doing. Want to come on the canoe trip? I guess that's up to you. But like, come and walk through our school. Like, I really feel like that's the best way to get to know who we are as a middle school. I want to extend that invitation. I don't know what the rules are for the public to do that, but I would love to have people walk through and ask questions and see our students and ask these same things that I ask them and see what kind of responses they give you. Because I believe we're doing great things in the middle school.
Would you be able to, because a handful of us don't have kids in the school.
Sure.
So we don't get like the notifications of
Of
like
course.
that they can
Yeah.
go out to the board. You know, so that would be really.
Yeah, we can absolutely put a little agenda together of like things happening in the middle school. I can't speak for the whole building, but things happening in the middle school in the upcoming month or something like that. And we can put it together. I mean, usually these things, especially battle physics, because there's so much that goes on with. I mean, they actually take a field trip to Home Depot because the physics teacher has his bus driving license. I always call that job security for him because if he's got a bus driving license, he's not going anywhere. But he actually they'll take a field trip to Home Depot and they are allotted X amount of money as part of, they reserve that for the field trip. And they go and they buy what they need and they can team up with other groups and say, okay, hey, if we buy this plywood, we'll give you half of this. If you buy that PVC pipe and give us half of that. So there's a lot of that kind of niggling going on. So they plan really far in advance of that kind of stuff. So it hasn't happened this year. So we'll make sure that all those details go out to you guys so you can hear all about it.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate your time.
Okay, so moving forward, so I think it would probably be just wise for us to, since we're talking about middle school climate presentation and kind of together, is it a big that, so we're not like bouncing all over the place? Okay, so why don't we do climate presentation?
Just as I'll do the sheriff and stand while I talk, so I can get my brain moving here. Actually, Brett, that was awesome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I mean, it is a very high quality program. And that 83% in terms of I have somebody here who really cares about me on the youth risk behavior survey, that's the highest I've ever seen in all the years that I've seen that survey.
We were really proud of that. That meant a lot to us. If it's not for that, then what's it for, Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
And the response rate is high on that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Instead of 140 students, we had 118 positive, 13, so 130 something.
Yeah.
So I'll try to move through somewhat quickly, but there are some kind of important points to this to make along the way. So, usually if people are bringing up concerns about the school or programs or things like that, the default factor, at least for me, is to kind of go back and dig a little bit deeper into the details and try to see, what's happening there. What information can we learn? Are there things that we can do a little bit better? So this is looking specifically at two data sets. And they actually tell a little bit of a different story about the students. The first one that we're going to look at is the harassment and bullying data directly from all the schools in the district and the district as a whole, because that was brought up as a concern, and take a look at how we compare to the state. And so that's school specific. The second piece that we're going to look at is a little bit of data from the youth risk behavior survey. It is critical to recognize the difference between those two data sets. The first one is specifically about the schools in the district. The youth risk behavior survey is data about what the students experience in their lives overall. So it is not school specific. It tells a lot of story about kind of what they're experiencing in the community and a little bit about school. The trick and what I'm going to ask the folks here to do is, as we look at this data, is try to put together the story that it tells, because there is concerns about bullying and harassment, but it's not where you expect. So just in terms of basic information, we're talking bullying and harassment. These are the legal definitions that we have to follow. The data is solid because it is data that we have to collect. It is required for us to submit to the state for the state to be able to get its federal grant money. So bullying, right? Repeated behavior by one or more students intended to ridicule, humiliate, or intimidate another student. So this is pretty egregious, aggressive behavior. A couple of other things that we look at, there's got to be an intent to cause harm. Typically, it occurs repeatedly over time. And one of the things that's going to be true about the definition for bullying and harassment is this idea of adverse effect. Typically, things are severe enough that it is harming the student's ability to be able to access the programming or literally the facility itself at the high school. Harassment has pretty much the same definition. With the one piece that harassment comes from civil rights legislation. So it's really focused on students that have specific perceived traits, right? If I'm intimidating you and I'm being mean to you, it's causing an adverse effect, that's bullying. If I'm doing it because of your race, your religion, your creed, that's when we're stepping across the line into harassment. So Vermont is required to collect this data from all the schools across the state, to compile it, and then to put it out publicly to be able to receive a lot of the federal grant money that the state receives and that's distributed to the schools. Their data is a little bit old on the state. So what I did to kind of moderate that a little bit is I took a 5-year average. So on average in the state of Vermont, if you are a public student in school, 1.95% of you will experience bullying. And again, in the schools, we're not talking about out in the community. This is school specific. So this is where TRSU stands compared to that state average going back to 2021. As a district as a whole, we have always been well under that state average. And if you take a look at that trend line, it is decreasing over time. In terms of Green Mountain High School, again, always under the state average and decreasing at an even faster rate over time. Chester Andover, similar situation, low incidence, some years no incidence whatsoever, well below the state, decreasing over time. Cavendish, only 1 year that had incidents, but above the state average. The trend line doesn't really mean a heck of a lot with only one data point. Important piece of data here. Again, we don't have a lot of harassment and bullying that's going on in the district or the schools overall. It's actually quite a small amount that's happening. The highlighted pieces are to point out, what grade is it happening in? And that little purple line there is separating middle school from high school. The majority of it is happening at the middle school grade levels. Again, part of the policy governance idea and the idea of having ends, which is telling me and telling the district what it is supposed to be working on, is so that we are analyzing the data and putting systems in place to get us to where we want to go. And so one of the reasons for the focus on the middle school level, aside from the academic component, is we see the need, right? Even though it's a small need physically within the schools, to work on that social, that cultural piece at the middle school with the students.
Just real quick, who is the reporting person here? This is students filling out an anonymous survey or some other?
So this is school data. So these are the reports that go to the principals that are investigated.
So this is principal reported? Is that- Okay.
Yeah. But it follows the state guidelines, state requirements. Right, because this goes to the state to meet those federal requirements. So youth risk behavior survey, and I put the important part down there in red. This is not about your schools necessarily. This is about your community. And this is where the story changes a little. And this is true across the country. So taking a look from 2017 youth risk behavior data to 2023, and they've been very consistent about the questions that they are asking students, which is great because it allows for that longitudinal kind of look at things. Students that are saying that they have been bullied in the past 30 days has been increasing. Right now in our district, Students are saying that in the last 30 days, as of the 2023 administration of the Youth Risk Survey, 30% of them have experienced bullying. Okay. Pattern with the state, the ups and downs is pretty consistent. But I would say that that's a worry mark. And here's why. The percentage of students that are saying the bullying is happening electronically. So one of the things that is kind of a topic of discussion that came up a little bit at the TRSU meeting is this idea of, hey, do we want to put some money aside to try to address this? This is going to be a costly endeavor if we do this because it's actually working with the community. You are a parent. You are giving your student or your child a cell phone. You are giving them access to the globe, access to be able to harass and bully on a global scale, to access pornography, to access hate. When you gave that powerful tool to your child, did you sit down and have a discussion about what was good and right and proper and what was not? Again, it's not that parents are purposely avoiding that. It's that without that community education, sometimes it's just not something we think about. Okay? So it's kind of important. Even more concerning is over the course of time, the number of students that are reporting that they have bullied someone else in the past 30 days. And you can see that dramatic rise. Again,
It's also electronic.
this is mostly community piece is kind of what this story is telling us. And it comes along with the rise of social media. It comes along with the increased use of cell phones. It's one of the reasons why a lot of states, like the state of Vermont, is saying no more. They're not coming into the schools.
This is also the first year that everybody came, like COVID stuff came, like we were finishing up with COVID.
So one of the things, so COVID was around this time. One of the things that happens, and I can actually pull that data if folks want to take a look at it. Bullying and harassment went up during COVID.
But I was wondering if this was reflective of like the withdrawal from,
My guess is the part, and again, taking my best guess here. It is adding credence to the idea that this is happening because of the electronics.
Right.
Why? Because during COVID, the kids weren't physically here together to be able to bully each other, but they certainly had their cell phones and their computers to be able to do it. They were separate. And so it was markedly higher during the COVID years at the state level. So again, I think definitely this is actually a national problem. I was taking a look at the Pew Research. Their general statement is that 20% of the kids around the country are experiencing bullying quite regularly. Most of it is through electronic means. Most of it's out in the community. And so then the question becomes, and these are some of the discussions, like I said with TRSU, is taking a look at doing a heavy investment to be able to get some national speakers in here to get some programs kicked off that we then continue to address this within. Because it is, right, it has an impact here. There were a lot of concerns last year. There were at the very first day or two in school, there were fights here at the high school. Fights didn't start here. The students were physically, geographically separated all summer. They were bashing each other on social media all summer long. This was the first opportunity they were in physical proximity to each other, and that's when they took out the frustrations of what was happening on social media. So, again, questions, thoughts? And again, I rushed through it a little bit just because of the lateness of it.
Yeah, I've got to reinforce reading The Anxious Generation if you haven't read that. It is such a great book. It outlines everything about responsibility, the change in attitude using cell phones and kids and youth. It also gives you resources at the end of it and data that Jonathan Haidt and forget the other chap who worked with them. They did there's a lot of other data out there that you can look at. And it does opens up your eyes to see. And the point you made, Lane, about educating parents more and making that a priority. We can't that can't come soon enough, as well as the, no cell phones.
And to start the community work, I would challenge everyone who sees this presentation to go home and check your own social media feeds as adults. Because the kids see what we put up there,
Absolutely.
and that's a model. Yep.
As far as investing in community education, I attended a conference not long ago. Guy, I can't remember his name, but his company is i2rock.org. Phenomenal. And it's everything he does is focused on this. He came from social media marketing and got out of it because he saw how nasty it was, and now runs an organization advocating for online safety, and his presentation is phenomenal. My first thought sitting there at this conference was, it'd be great to get this guy in the schools. If we're gonna invest, I think it's worth looking at.
What, from my experience, what's nice about working with the kids on this sort of a thing is that if you can connect them to how the other person feels, if you can get that emotional piece in there, they get it really quick.
Right.
It's much more difficult with the adults, having done this work in Marblehead. They get it, they want to work on it, but we're all, especially as I'm getting older too, I get stuck in my ways. And so even though, they may walk out of that presentation with good intent, people often slip back into, which is why if we get it started, it needs to be an ongoing program.
Sure.
I also don't think this is gonna be something that the kids are going to be against, because they feel like there's actually a social movement even in their generation, recognizing how poor, social media is for them. So.
And as Brett said, they are one step ahead. So in some ways you need the kids to tell you both what is going on and how things are working and how, parent controls are failing.
Thank you, Wade.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
If I go off and read about the kid of his own life, because he's being a cyberbully.
Yep.
And it happens quietly behind the scenes, and the only person who knows is the students experiencing it. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Is that next year that we're phone breaks?
I gotta take a look at what the final version of the law is passed, because I do believe so.
Beautiful.
Okay, all right, so keeping the group together, Donovan had, I believe, emailed everybody that he wanted to discuss bullying and harassment in schools.
Yeah, that presentation. I was gonna just ask about the data to see what was going on in the schools, because I kept hearing about it.
All right, so let's see. That is going to bring us to administrative reports.
Sitting beside the road, traveling, waiting to do this speech.
So, yeah, folks wanted to hear about the law.
Oh, okay, is everybody good with moving that?
Yep.
Okay, all right, go ahead, Todd, sorry.
No, that's okay. I'll be really short.
Hold on, Todd, we can't hear you, hold on,
I think I got it.
it's us.
He's got his cameras on, I see it.
Up as high as it'll go, give it a shot.
Are you
Everybody
hunting?
hear me?
Better.
You can now.
Okay, all good news. All 3-year schools are in good shape. The doors were ordered for Cavendish that you approved the last meeting. We have another round of indoor air quality testing at the high school scheduled for December 6th, 7th, and 8th. And we have some positive movement with the FEMA project at Chester Andover. All good news. No high impact budgetary items at any of the schools right now. So it's all good news. And I saw that there was something about lawn mowing. So I don't know if somebody had questions about something to do with lawn mowing.
Could the high school mow the elementary school?
That's kind of a complicated question, Scott. We have the equipment now that we bought a second zero turn. The problem would be that it'd have to be done after hours, and that the people who mow the lawn work like not those hours. So it would be overtime, and it'd be It'd be a fact of getting the equipment over there. We don't have it. If we could run it down the road, I imagine, back and forth, or try to leave it at Chester Andover, but it's more of a personnel issue and not so much personnel, but a timing. And at that time of year, we're busy trying to get the high school cleaned and ready for fall at the time. So, it's not really a yes or no question, I guess, or answer.
Don't we have a trailer?
We do not. No. We had a small one, little one, but it wouldn't, a very small one that just an old wood one, almost handmade.
There's also a question Cheryl mentioned about our mowing contractor does more than mow.
Yeah. Do we have an idea of the overall cost, not just the mowing, but all the extras?
I'd have to go in and look, but he does the fall cleanup, the spring cleanup. You know, if there's a water rot on the side of the road, he does that. He does the chips on the playground. And any other kind of.
Things that pop up.
So just as a point of order, we are now policy.
Yep.
So, I think the discussion's worthy to be had because, it started before the changeover. But those decisions are here now. Sure. Yeah.
Are you all set, Todd, or is there more?
Nope, I'm good, unless somebody else has got questions.
Are you hunting?
What's that?
Are you hunting?
Nope, we're headed south.
Well, travel safe.
Right, thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say.
Okay, so superintendent's report,
We kind of covered that.
that was done.
Because you also have a written write-up in there
In the
about,
folder.
the most recent changes in terms of redistricting. And December 1st is their deadline. It'll be interesting to see what they actually present to the legislature.
All right, curriculum report.
So the write-up is in there. The one thing that I'll point out, just to kind of speed things up a little bit, is we did send a group of people Louisa took down to talk about the statewide graduation requirements and graduation proficiencies. Part of Act 73 required that to be standardized across the state. So when you think about the graduation requirements, that's like you need 4 years of English to graduate. You need this many years of science, this many years of math. So that is one thing that they're working on. But also the proficiencies, the things that you should be able to demonstrate, in order to get your diploma. Proficiency would be something along the lines is, can you mathematically model a natural system? And so they're a part of that group that is trying to develop that.
And how many of us would graduate?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah, there's some pretty impressive things to talk about.
So I actually just have a question about that. So will this prevent, it's like in New York, and they all have to take, was it the regents? Regents. I mean, is there, I understand with like, special ed and IEPs, there's, things get moved around, but I mean, this will absolutely make it so that there is some sort of a level of accountability for our students graduating. It's not like willy-nilly, like, let's get this kid through because they're a problem or, like that sort of thing.
If you've got if you're coming out of Chester versus here, this is the minimum education we can expect the students to have, 4 years of English, 3 years of math, 3 years of science. Because if you don't have that, if you're a student that has that and you haven't passed it, you're not. Doesn't mean that districts can't increase that, right? If the board has a goal, says, hey, we really want super high performing kids. And we think that the best way to do it is to make sure that, a lot of districts in Massachusetts, it's 5 years of English. Because they need a year of being able to do public speaking, things like that. In addition to the regular students. So it can be modified, can't be lessened, but can be increased.
Anything more on the curriculum or? Okay, and then financial report.
So I'll briefly go through a few things I have, and then we'll jump into the budget. So you have October in the folder. We spent 28.98% of the budget, which is excellent at this time of the year. We're a quarter of the way through, third of the way through the year. there's nothing new to add from the last time that I spoke to you on it, but you can go in there, take a look at it if you have any questions. I did want to let you know that Cavendish, has, in their kitchen, they have wooden counters with like a Formica top, something that's not really working well, and it's something that we get dinged every time the health inspector comes in, not badly, but we get dinged. And so Todd is using, Andy is using the summer food money that he got, about 16,000 to go in to replace those counters. I have to use a little bit out of the budget, but they have that in their budget line. So it won't be a problem, but they'll be able to pull out and complete it well compared to what they've been able to do in the past. So that's hopefully gonna happen over Christmas break. And Andy did let me know that the freezer door at Chester Andover, he just replaced the compressor, I think, last summer with summer food money. But the door is having an issue and it's about 4,500. He thinks it has to be fabricated because it's an old model that you can go in. So we could take a portion of that, but we let it come back for capital. And just to follow up quickly on what Todd had said about FEMA, FEMA had come back about a month ago and said, hey, we think you should have gotten more from your insurance company. So we went back and forth with Visbit, but in the end, they actually gave us the full value of the White House fee total, which is like 100%.
Oh, good.
Perfect.
Great.
So I know business prices are going up, but you know, they do right by us when we need them to do right by us.
Sure.
We had a meeting yesterday with the architect and engineer just to get a rough drawing. That's what FEMA needs in order to tell us how much money they're gonna give us. So we know how much money that we need to move forward with this project. And I'm working with Karen Boyce, I think is her name, for Vermont,
I think you got it right.
emergency management, and she's free. Excellent. And it's good help with some of the grants, looking for grants that we don't have.
Perfect.
Question? Budget.
But this is horrible. It's like 80 slides long and I'm kidding. It's like 3 slides. This is like this is like the easiest one of the year. And so this is a good sign. The real overall goal for the Green Mountain budget is level service, right? A big thank you to the board and to the community for helping the district kind of restore positions that were lost in the previous year. But at this point in time, we have what we need to move forward effectively. So the goal is just preserving what we have. Unfortunately, those costs do go up from year to year with inflation. So, you know, there's always going to be an increase, but it's not going to be what people have seen in previous years. Just as a point of reflection, the current budget year that we're in, 2024-25, 18.6 million. That was a 12.3% increase over the previous year. We are looking going into this budget season, which is the 2026-2027 budget of 19.4 million, which is a 4.4% increase over the previous year. Remembering that inflation is a little over 3% right now.
That's level service.
That's level service. So there's a level budget, which means you keep the same dollar.
Right, I'm talking level service.
Not level funded.
Right, level service, we're not changing anything, but the inflation cost is
Yep.
$800,000.
And we'll go into some details here.
Is there not a 25-26?
No, sure.
It goes from 24-25 to.
Oh, no, that should say 25-26.
Okay.
So sorry about that. That's a good
Just like- Okay.
Come on, I only hit 4 slides. I didn't mess that up. Jeez. So the changes from this school year to the next, the biggest one year after year is special education. There was some of this is due a little bit to student shifting, right? Students in outplacements, an increase in that. But the majority of it, and this was true on the Ludlow Mount Holly side and at the TRSU level, is actually just an increase in the cost for the services that they're currently providing. And so that's the largest chunk of it. The contingency piece there, that is the cost of the step increases for teachers, support staff, as well as anticipating as best we can where negotiations with the Green Mountain support staff and the teachers may land. The central office assessment, a little part of that is for the increase in salaries to the non-bargaining folks at the central office level. What I do with them, and this is a part of your policies under policy governance, is I need to go out and take a look at what the comparables are around the state and see if folks are at that level, and then recommend to the board to change it if they are not. Because those non-bargaining staff members typically don't have a union that makes sure that things up to date all the time. It's an important process. There are a number of them that are very far out of whack. And when I say out of whack, I'm talking 10, 15 grand. So I'm not trying to make up all that at once, but we're trying to get them closer to the comparables. So what's happening demographically. So that's a part of it. The largest chunk of that central office assessment, however, is the anticipated loss of Title II funding. As a district as a whole, that's probably what, about 300,000-ish for the Title II overall, not their share of it, but at the TRSU level. What that supports is everything that we do to improve education. It's teacher training. It's a lot of the work that we do around making sure that we are doing the best that we can and providing the best environment in terms of the skill sets of the teachers for the kids. And so while we're not building back everything that we're potentially going to lose with the federal government cuts, we're building back enough that we can keep those programmings and keep that professional development going. The food service support. So this is what you use to subsidize the cost of meals to students. It's going up because the cost of food is going up.
I'm still working with Angie on this. They sent me a revised budget just before I left, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
We're still working on that.
Vermont, this is often a double-edged sword because the goal is to try to get locally sourced. The problem becomes is locally sourced is often frequently much more expensive than what they can get in the collaboratives that they sometimes connect with. There are savings as well. So you've got the costs in red, you've got the savings in green. We had put aside 170,000 in the last round in terms of the budget in terms anticipating losses to federal grants. That money is not needed in the next round of the budget. Chester Andover, there were $2 amounts that make up that total there. One was the money was going to paying off the loan on the roof, the bond on the roof. That is paid off, so that money is no longer needed to be budgeted for. And then we had put aside, I thought it was 180,000-ish. 220 to get started on the construction at Chester Andover. But now that things are actually looking pretty rosy in terms of what's coming from Visbit and hopefully FEMA, it does not look like it's necessary. So those do not need to be there.
Great.
The last change was that there was 25,000 put in the last year's budget to buy a new driver's ed car. That car is here, so we don't need to keep that rolling over into the next budget. So that's coming off. The last piece is reserve and surplus. At the end of the year, money that's left over is called surplus. When you as a board and sometimes when the town votes decides what to do with that surplus, it becomes potentially reserve. Some of it can be rolled into the next budget year to subsidize taxes. Some of it can be voted on into a reserve fund for a specific purpose. Based on the predicted surplus right now, there is not an end of the year deficit. There will be a surplus.
Strong work.
She's gonna modify a little
I
bit.
can explain that a little bit. So at the end of last year, when we were budgeting last year, we had $1.2 million in that budget. We had marked 500,000 for last year's budget, and we ended up going over budget by 647,000.
Special education.
Yeah.
Right. How much?
So that's, well, because we've talked about this before, that's in there as a revenue line, but we don't literally have revenue, and how we spend it is we deficit spend. So we had 500, but we actually ended up spending 647,000 over budget. So that nets out to
147.
yeah, roughly 147. And we did have money, so we do after that still have $626,000 in there. However, we budgeted 450,571 in this year's budget. And we have taxpayers approved 357,395 to go into a special reserve. So we still have the deficit. So right now, we do not have a finalized audit. But also Lane spoke about the money for the federal cuts that we had in the budget that we're not going to use. And we have the 228,000 for the bond that we're not going to use. So at this point, I am working under the premise that we will have a surplus with that money. Therefore, we don't have to budget for last year's deficit.
Right.
And
That makes sense to
Yes.
everybody?
Yeah. That's the more complicated way of saying we're in the black. So you have you have a deficit on a line in there due to the special education funding, but overall, in terms of the overall budget, which is what matters. You like those
I
specifics,
like the
not-
details.
and I don't blame you.
That's her job.
I'm just glad she's doing it. She's doing it, not me.
Thank you.
So questions on or concerns or things that you'd like us to take a look at? The budget piece is one piece that is the boards. It's one of the ways that you control what happens in the schools.
So the other thing that I'd like just to explain, so while this budget is up 4.4, when we look over to our revenues, which I doesn't like to talk about, but I like to talk about. We have the general state support grant, which is how we fund the balance of the budget that we don't have tuition money or other money that we get in interest, whatever. So this year, about to lose power on my computer, so good timing. It's going up, over $1 million. And that is due to it's going up 7.958%, and that is the 818,000 that the budget's going up, and then the 415,000 that we have in this year's budget that we no longer have in next year's budget. So we have to make that up. Right?
But all those
We
numbers.
used our coupon last year. Do you remember this discussion? We used our coupon last year. We do not have that coupon this year, so we have to pay full price.
Yeah.
Alright, so that's part of the reason that we're at the 1.1 and not the 8. 818. Bananas. So I still don't have all the information that that we need to complete the budget. We don't have the stuff for first letter, which will tell us our yield. To determine our tax rate, and then we don't get our long-term weighted ADM until like the 15th of December. So hopefully at the next meeting will be a lot closer to where my actual.
You might have an idea of taxes. Are they still using the new calculation that hides COA? I figured
I
out,
haven't heard anything.
I figured out how to break it out this year, so we'll all be able to break that out. Because last year, people had these huge tax increases across the state. When I had some time over the summer, I was able to figure out the math on how they were hiding what portion of it was due to the changes of common level appraisal versus what was actually due to changes in the education fund. And 2/3 to 3/4 of it was COA. And so if I don't want to speak for you, but if in terms of Cheryl, and she can beat me up if I'm wrong, Cheryl's like, that's because they wanted to hide it.
Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
So, all right.
All right, any questions for Cheryl?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we've already done this whole time. Now that brings us to protocol for communication for board vacancies. I'm sorry, communication from the board and then protocol for board vacancies.
That's in the packets towards the end, the two of them. Anything that changed between the last discussion and now is highlighted. There's questions on the changes. I can try to remind people what at least what I thought people wanted.
Just have a question, Lane, under the proposed protocol for filling a vacant board, Under declaration of vacancies, it says a vacancy is officially declared when a school board member resigns, passes away, is removed. I think it takes an act of God to have an elected official removed, right?
Yep.
Does that need to be, because I don't think, it has to happen through a general election, right? Like maybe 25% of the general population vote.
Yeah.
So this language, and I can go back and double check, I believe they pulled straight from the regulation.
Okay.
And my understanding, in terms of interactions that I have had is that the Secretary of State does have some power given the circumstances.
You know, back in 2021, there was, I think it was in Bennington, it went to the House where it could be done at school level, but I never heard anything beyond that.
Yeah.
It was 4 or 5 years ago.
I was in a district where there were issues on the board that I had to report to the state. And the impression that I was left with was that the Secretary of State could come in and,
Okay.
so again, I don't know for sure, but I can go back and double check, but I believe I pulled this directly from
All right.
from the regs. The wording.
Yeah, I just like that wording because it does leave room for someone to say 6 months from now, I'm going to need to resign, and that doesn't start the process. But there could still be warning and you could notify and get applications.
Sure.
Yep, that's what.
Doesn't start the timeline.
Either removal is any possibility at all, probably needs to be included.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no.
Okay, is there any further discussion on the vacancy? No. Thanks. Do you want to discuss the other or vote on it separately? Vote on them together. What do I do? Well, is there a motion to accept this one?
Well, yeah.
Scott, who?
Rick.
Rick, sorry. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so the protocol for filling a vacant board seat, I have it on Wednesday. All right, moving on to procedural complaints.
So there was a little discussion about, at the last meeting about, should this be potentially, a chair duty? Could the chair, be this person? There was discussion about the idea, what happens if the person who is that complaints officer is the subject of a complaint? And so the final yellow piece there is the best that I can come up with, that it's happy to change if folks again, this is a board prerogative. This is a protocol that you guys follow, that you're agreeing amongst yourselves that you would.